And it is time for the hot topic of the hour. Mark Zuckerberg finally coming out with the truth. The Meta CEO admitting that his company was pressured by the Biden-Harris administration to censor Americans on the coronavirus pandemic in particular. In a letter to House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan, Zuckerberg says he believed, quote, the pressure was wrong and regrets not being more outspoken about it, saying, quote, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. Zuckerberg also mentioned suppressing information about, get this, the Hunter Biden laptop story. Rebecca, this is the intersection of social media and politics, and Mark Zuckerberg finally admitting what truly happened, which we reported on, by the way, back in 2021.
Yeah, and everyone denied it, right? There's no censorship. There's nothing happening here. And you know what's really scary, Cheryl, is that if you look at what's happening in Europe right now with these laws about free speech, or I should say against free speech, if you create a social media post, I just saw a story this morning on Bloomberg, if you create a social media post that is offensive to someone, a British citizen is just sentenced to 20 months in jail for his social media post. So this is absolutely serious. And I don't, to his point, to Zuckerberg's point, he said, you know, we were really pressured. I mean, the phrase he said was repeatedly pressure by the Biden administration to censor COVID-19 humor, satire, topics. And this is not a free society. This is not a democracy where we can't question the government and we can't push back on the scientific narrative. That's when we have really bad things happen with science, with laws that are passed. So this is a big problem.
So Fox Business has reached out to the White House for comment about these allegations. We have not heard from the White House yet about this. But another thing that was talking about the Hunter Biden laptop story and the Russian disinformation. Remember, there was supposed to be Russian disinformation. You know, it wasn't, and they suppressed the New York Post story.
Yes.
Well, now, Caroline, here's what he says about this. He says, quote, it's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation. And in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story.
Right. But, I mean, it's too late now because the effect was to diminish the Trump campaign, to prevent the American people from accessing free information. I mean, this period, the pandemic, we really don't emphasize enough how much of a draconian era of radical government intervention into our election proceedings, into our daily lives, into public health. It really was amazing. And when I saw this Meta story, by the way, it reminded me of two other instances of government collusion with agencies. We saw, remember, the National School Board Association conspired with the DOJ and Merrick Garland to characterize parents as domestic terrorists for protesting radical curricula in schools. And then they deployed the FBI and local law enforcement to treat them as threats. Similarly, the CDC and the teachers unions, radical teachers unions, you know, they conspired to prolong school closures. So,
well, you know, he basically told Jim Jordan, and this, by the way, this is all because of Jim Jordan's committee that all this information has now come to light. And he said that in 2021, he quotes, he said it was senior officials from the Biden administration and specifically the White House repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor COVID-19 content, including even humor and satire. What a blockbuster, piece of news coming out of Mark Zuckerberg. So let's talk about the other side of this. Could Democrats be censoring Kamala Harris? It's been 37 days since she's moved to the top of the Democratic ticket. She has yet to give it a sit-down interview. Hollywood director Quentin Tarantino joining Democrats' calls for Harris to continue dodging interviews. Watch.
There's no reason for her to go on your show before the election, but I can actually see her.
Yes, there is, because I speak to the exact voter she needs, the person who is in the middle. Basically, that's exactly the audience she needs. The MSNBC crowd is already voting for her.
I think they're just all about winning the election, all right? Sometimes it's just about winning, and it doesn't matter how we look at this moment. It's about winning.
Right.
This is about winning.
Yep. No, it is.
It's a mad dash, and she is running, and she's not stopping to stumble.
Interesting comments from him. I guess you can say whatever you want on a podcast. Anyway, but not all of Hollywood is on the same page. Here is more from comedian and TV host Bill Maher.
What do you think about the fact that Kamala doesn't talk to the press? In a way, I feel like it's more insulting than what Trump does. And Trump says you're the enemy of the people, which is pretty bad. But she's kind of saying, is, I don't need you. I'm not talking to you. You don't matter. You're not relevant anymore. To me, that's even worse.
And Axios reporter Alex Thompson says what everyone else has been quietly saying. Watch.
Harris's caution, extraordinary caution when it comes to interviews, is why some Democrats were nervous about making her the nominee. It's why people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer were more in favor of like an open process, because the fact is that almost all of her worst moments as vice president have come in live interviews.
Caroline.
Democrats, Kamala Harris, they do have tunnel vision for winning, but that doesn't excuse their dismissing the American people at large by refusing to answer any questions, adversarial questions from reporters. Kamala Harris should be forced to clarify her past extreme policy positions, whether she still holds them, and even what her platform is now on the economy. It just shows great contempt for the American people that she proposed radical price controls, but never bothered to explain what that means, where she got that from, and by the way, this
Gene Sperling, but that's just my guess.
This new debate idea, to have the hot mics, by the way, I believe that is a transparently, cheap campaign stuff.
We're going to get into that in the show. Real quick, last word here.
Cheryl, it's disgusting. Quentin Tarantino is someone who is in the business of storytelling. And basically what he just admitted publicly was, do not mess this up. We're running full force, but Kamala's not doing anything. No interviews. What is she running full force doing? Keeping her mouth shut. And I think the American public has zero appetite for another puppet of a presidency.
And that's when she gets into trouble, is when she's off script. And they know that. All right, we're just getting started this morning. Coming up, all eyes are on Nvidia this week after a disappointing earnings season for other Mag 7 mega caps. And investors are going to be closely watching the GDP and PC reports this week after Jay Powell kept that door open for large rate cuts. Northland Private Wealth Chief Investment Officer. We do. I want to bring in Rebecca Walser on this because obviously we're looking ahead, Rebecca, to Nvidia. That is the story of the week. It might even be the earnings report of the quarter. And many are asking now, gosh, is this AI boom starting to fizzle out?
Well, obviously we've seen some other mega, caps disappoint in the Mag 7, but really with Nvidia, I think that it's the long-term runway. It's going to be the guidance, right? Are they expecting it to taper off with recessionary pressures that we're starting to see in the market, with inflation maybe not being as important as employment now, for the Fed switching to employment? But if you look at Nvidia, it's 163% up, Cheryl, year to date. If you look at its rival, Intel is down 9% year to date. So AMD I'm talking about. So really look at the long term. It's 3,083% higher than 5 years ago. Its 5-year growth is 3,083. So we're looking at a massive EPS earnings and revenue. We're talking about, 113% over year from just last year on revenue, and about 140% year over year growth on EPS. So it's going to be a really big tell for tomorrow.
Wow. Well, we're going to get that print after the number after the close, and that's really going to be a market mover.
Yes.
Alex, before you go, how are you investing right now?
We kind of see the current environment as, I've said it is like stagflation adjacent, just where growth is slowing slightly and inflation is still sticky increasing. So we certainly don't say that to say that it's like a 1970s style inflation that we're looking at. But to us, it just kind of means like don't abandon wholesale, the large cap tech trade. It's really just kind of around the edges, start to add some defensive positions that can be helped by rates coming backwards. And so that's certainly your utilities, healthcare, consumer staples. Small caps begin to look attractive here just with rates coming down and how accretive that is to their bottom line. So for us, it's really kind of trimming the edges to shore up these portfolios as this data starts to slow down.
All right. Alex McGrath, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We have a lot more coming up this morning.
Even the American workplace is not safe from the political divide. Check out this new Harris poll. It was conducted for Indeed.com. It shows that over a third of employees admit to openly discussing their political beliefs at work, which might complicate things, as 42% find politics have impacted their work teams. Well, more than half of workers say they prefer jobs with politically aligned CEOs. 40% of workers that are between the ages of 18 and 34 would actually get up and quit if there's political differences at work. Cancel culture at its finest.
So first it was Thanksgiving and now it's our jobs.
Yeah, basically.
Do you avoid talking politics?
You know, I am a tax lawyer, so I've naturally gravitate towards, being against government policies that will raise taxes. That kind of pushes me on the other side. But I've traditionally tried to avoid it as a CEO of a wealth management firm. But I will tell you, this has pushed. I mean, to Robert Kennedy's point, he did an interview with Tucker Carlson. He said, this and the extremeness has pushed me in places I never thought I would go. So you have to push back and say, this isn't normal, guys. I don't accept this. I'm going to have to say something.
Yeah.
As diversity, equity, and inclusion has gained new popularity in our culture, real diversity, intellectual diversity, contending with people who disagree with you, that's out of fashion. And that's actually very constructive, I think, in a workplace. Yeah. And what this shows is that tribalism, political division is very much, replacing just that good collaboration between people who may not have the same worldview, but are probably, united in more ways than they think.
There's a piece in the Journal this morning, big bank CEO's mom on race for president, Lauren. And I thought it was interesting because it talks about even Jamie Dimon, who, he sometimes has said, well, my heart is Democratic, my brain is kind of Republican. He's probably the most, but these CEOs don't want to offend their employees. They don't want their shareholders to get angry. They're trying to be really careful this election cycle.
Employees are increasingly easily offended. Look, if you have a certain set of beliefs and they matter so much to you, find a company that shares your beliefs. Go work at Ben & Jerry's, right? There are places for certain people. Other companies try to stay under the radar and not say much, but when their employees get so vocal about an issue, they sometimes have to come out and say something pro that issue, and then they offend oftentimes their customers, and you get the backlashes and the boycotts. Bud Light, right? Yeah. So this is a major problem in American society. As a young person, when you look at your CEO, regardless of their political beliefs, I think you should say, what does that person know? What have they learned over the course of their career and their lives that makes them think that? And consider that maybe with gray hair and age and experience is perhaps a better point of view.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought up the Bud Light example, though, because you're right. Companies have learned, sadly, because of cancel culture, that they've got to stay out of politics. And shareholders are now, by the way, DEI, shareholders are getting over that, too. There's a lot of pushback.
It doesn't make you a more efficient company. It doesn't make your product any more appealing to be politicized,
What was that, Lauren?
I was just naming all the companies that have recently pushed back. Harley Davidson against the DEI
what a disaster
policies.
That was. It just keeps coming at us.
Yeah,
wow.
It does. All right. Well, Lauren, great discussion. Thank you, ma'am.
See you soon.
All right. We will see you next hour. Kamala Harris out with a new campaign ad trying to hit former President Trump over the economy. Well, forgetting that she's been in the White House for nearly 4 years. But watch.
When I am elected president, I will make it a top priority to bring down costs. I will fight to give money back to working and middle-class Americans.
The ad comes as a new poll taken after the DNC shows that Harris and Trump are neck and neck nationally, with Trump getting a boost from RFK Jr.'s endorsement, and Trump getting another big endorsement from former Democratic presidential candidate and Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard.
Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent, if you love our country, as I do, if you cherish peace and freedom as we do, I invite you to join me in doing all that we can to save our country and elect President Donald J. Trump and send him back to the White House to do the tough work of saving our country and serving the people.
And as Trump is gaining endorsements, Harris is losing some. Montana Senator John Tester, who played a big role in getting Harris elected to the Senate and endorsed her for vice president in 2020, says he's not going to be making an endorsement in the presidential election this year. Tester says he will instead focus on his own re-election bid. And House Speaker Mike Johnson adding insult to injury.
Obviously, the Democrats are on a sugar high. Everybody's acknowledged that, and I think that gets real after Labor Day.
All right, Carolyn, your reaction to all of that.
Yeah, well, I think, Kamala Harris's nomination certainly reset the race, but I think Trump's new wild card could be these alliances with these new ex-Democrat dissenters that are diverging from their party. RFK said explicitly in his most recent speech that the DNC was a circus about nothing, and Kamala Harris is showing contempt for the American people by refusing to give them any concrete policy. And also the Party of Democracy, DNC-aligned PACs, tried to kick RFK off the ballot. So, I mean, he was completely alienated by the patriarch, JFK's, old establishment party. And I don't think he would recognize what the Democratic Party has become today. And that being said, I don't know how much this endorsement will actually help Trump, because when RFK dropped out, he was polling around 7%. So he may help him on the margins. And as we know, this election could come down to very small margins in, several swing states, but it remains to be seen whether it will have this, very large effect to boost Trump.
All right. What do you make of the John Tester piece of this? Because he is definitely the most vulnerable Democrat in of the several, key Senate races that are really going to be neck and neck. He's the most vulnerable because, remember, he's the one that encouraged Harris to run for Senate.
Right.
And now he's not even endorsing her. That's pretty rough.
I think that's a pretty strong indictment of Kamala Harris's political evolution, which, of course, is not consistent. She's a political chameleon, and that's not fair, again, to the Democratic voters, the old school liberals like RFK, who, don't want to ban fracking. They don't want to confiscate AR-15s. They don't want to eliminate the filibuster to pass the Green New Deal. So I think this senator's defection from Harris shows that she has deteriorated as a candidate into something really radical, really authoritarian that, even a, card-carrying lawmaker Democrat cannot back. He cannot approve of her.
Yeah, let's talk about the debate, guys, because, Harris and Trump are battling over the debate rules. Both campaigns accusing the other of trying to back out. Watch.
We agreed to the same rules. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I'd rather have it probably on, but the agreement was that it would be the same as it was last time. In that case, it was muted. I didn't like it the last time, but it worked out fine. Ask Biden how it worked out. It was fine. And I think it should be the same. We agreed to the same rules. Same rules and same specifications. And I think that's probably what it should be. But they're trying to change it. The truth is they're trying to get out of it because she doesn't want to debate. She's not a good debater. She's not a smart person. She doesn't want to debate.
Some Harris critics say that she wants their mics open during the entire debate so she can recreate this moment from her 2020 debate with then VP Mike Pence.
He said because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
but Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to add, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. This is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well,
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth.
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more. In 1864...
Well, I'd like you to answer the question.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. Okay.
And the Trump campaign also calling out Harris over potential conflicts of interest as she preps for the debate with Google's lead defense attorney. The Biden-Harris administration currently is suing Google over its digital advertising practices, with the trial set to begin September 9th, just one day before the debate. A lot to unpack there, Rebecca, but what do you make of all of this back and forth over the debate? In particular, how many times did she say, I am speaking?
It was so condescending. And it's really difficult for any male politician to debate a female politician just because it can seem over aggressive and women get repelled by that. And you have to really make sure you don't alienate your female base. But I got to say, every time I'm speaking, it's almost like I am speaking, and whatever you have to say is, even though this is a debate, debate is so irrelevant that you will shut up and listen to what I have to say. That's how it comes across, that connotation. And, I want the debate. We need to hear from this candidate. She has that commercial about the economy that you showed. She doesn't talk about the fact that she's been there for 4 years and actually discuss anything. So I cannot believe that the American people will fall for this, where the media will be allowed to obfuscate and hide the fact that Biden's faculties were going for the last however long. And now we've got a new candidate that will not even sit for an interview. Unacceptable.
Caroline, I want to get your take on that. Is there a conflict of interest with the Google attorney that's coaching her when the administration is suing Google and going to court? It does give a little bit of an appearance
why
of...
is Google coaching her? Why is Google coaching
her? The attorney.
At the very minimum, it's bad optics. But, beyond that, what it does show her is that she's heavily rehearsed and heavily scripted. She's going to be a robot, I think, by default at the debate. And I think this campaign trick, this cheap stunt to, have the hot mics on, it's to goad Trump. It's to goad him into flying off the handle, to bait him into, his worst temptations, to give these, off the cuff, very punchy retorts. And that's to distract from her. Her worst fear is being forced to answer to her abysmal record on immigration, on the economy. That is what she's afraid of.
All right. We are just getting started this hour. Coming up, we are... Time now for the word on Wall Street. Top investors watching your money. Joining me now is Banrian Capital Management CEO Shanna Sissel. Also with me, Rebecca Walser. Shanna, good morning. I'm going to start with you here. Looking at futures this morning, we've got a, kind of a tepid start here. We're now negative, just slightly for the Dow, the Nasdaq, and the S&P. The Dow did close at a record high yesterday. The S&P and the 500, though, and the Nasdaq both slipped, dragged down by tech and by chip stocks. As we're looking ahead to Nvidia, reporting earnings with the bell tomorrow, with sales set to double for the second quarter. Are you expecting a strong performance from Nvidia? Every quarter, the bar gets higher and higher for this company.
Yeah, it's harder and harder to be known for calling this stock a long time ago and being asked to predict these things because I have a greater and greater probability of being wrong. So I think that we'll continue to see strength in Nvidia. They've been very good about having really clear outlook. The things I'm personally paying attention to is the Blackwell chip backlog and how that impacts not just Nvidia, but consumers of those chips, AI producers, as well as ancillary players and secondary players around AI. So I think we'll see positive results from Nvidia, but it's less and less likely that they'll be able to continue this 400% year-over-year increase in revenue and growth and in earnings. I think we'll start to see that come back. I think it's 110% year-over-year growth now, which I think people will be disappointed with, which is it's still amazing, but given its history, it's really hard for it to continue to, go straight up like a rocket ship. And so I think we should be preparing ourselves, maybe not this earnings cycle, but in the near future. They're just not going to be able to keep up this pace.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, just because you win 4 Super Bowls doesn't mean you're going to win 4 more. Rebecca,
you're saying that to a Pats fan. What are you doing?
And I'm a Cowboys fan, so we're going to agree to disagree. Rebecca, let's talk about the Fed. So these comments from Fed President Thomas Barkin were interesting. He said the low hiring, low firing approach that U.S. businesses are currently taking for employment decision is unlikely to last. He basically says we might start to see more layoffs, especially if the economy gets worse. What do you make of that?
Yeah, he's basically saying the middle of the road is not going to continue, Cheryl, and that either we're going to see demand slow because the consumer is under too much pressure, either through layoffs or what have you, and so we will start to see numbers fall, or we're going to see demand continue, and then we will actually have hiring. So clearly he's saying we're not going to stay kind of where we are in this, not sure which way we're headed, and I think clearly we are kind of moving in a recessionary phase. And of course we should be, Cheryl, because why would would the Fed be cutting if we're not? There's got to be a reason that they're needing to say that, September 18th we'll probably see our first cut. To me, I think we're still only going to get 25 basis points unless something more desperate happens between now and September 18th. So I do think we're at 25 basis points, but you can just look, Cheryl, you can see 1.27 million jobs have gone to foreign sourced people and 1.2 million jobs have been lost by American citizens. We're moving from full-time jobs to part-time jobs, and that is why we're in this low, we don't want to lay you off yet because we don't know if we're going to need you or not need you, but we're kind of getting ready to potentially have layoffs again.
Yeah. The concern about those layoffs, Shana, is certainly, I know that's on your radar. You're saying here that you're really watching the U.S. jobless claims number, and if we hit something like a 260,000, that's another warning sign to you.
Yeah, there's something called the SOM rule, which has to do with the relative increase in unemployment rate being an indicator of recession, and we're getting dangerously close to that. So that's definitely something worth looking at. And I think, to Rebecca's point, the Fed is going to make the most conservative decision in cutting rates in September, because I think it also sees these relative cracks and it wants to be able to save some ammunition when it really needs it. And I think that's why we're most likely to see that 25 basis point cut, because they are paying very close attention to the employment markets.
Well, there is going to be another jobs report, to your point, before they meet. So that could certainly be a factor. All right, Shana Sissel, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, we'll continue to talk in the season. Let's get underway. All right, Rebecca's going to stay with us all morning long. We've got a lot more coming up this morning. Good morning. I'm Cheryl Casoni. I'm in for Marie Bartiromo. It is Tuesday. It is August 27th, 8 a.m. on the East Coast. Time for the hot topic of the hour. Mark Zuckerberg finally coming out with the truth. The Meta CEO admitting that his company was pressured by the Biden-Harris administration to censor Americans on the coronavirus pandemic in particular. In a letter to House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan, Zuckerberg says he believed the pressure was wrong and regrets not being more outspoken about it, saying, quote, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. A White House spokesperson responding this morning saying, quote, when confronted with the deadly pandemic, this administration encouraged responsible actions to protect public health and safety. Our position has been clear and consistent. We believe tech companies and other private actors should take into account the effects their actions have on the American people while making independent choices about the information they present. Well, Zuckerberg also says he regrets suppressing information about Hunter Biden's laptop. Here is former White House press secretary Jen Psaki and President Biden back in 2020 and 2021 when questioned by Fox's Peter Doocy on the laptop. Watch.
I think it's broadly known and widely known, Peter, that there was a broad range of Russian disinformation.
Do you still think that the stories from the fall about your son Hunter were Russian disinformation as his smear campaign, like you said?
Yes.
I mean, Rebecca, they were saying it out loud. Peter was asking about them. It was Russian disinformation. Fast forward 2024, it absolutely was not. Absolutely. And that has been proven thanks to Jim Jordan's investigative work and his committee work.
And this is a testament for why it's great to have divided government so that you can actually have some government holding other government accountable. What occurs to me, Cheryl, is the liability question as a lawyer. The legal question here is the concern, because under the Communications Decency Act, Section 230, you guys have talked about incessantly on Fox, that is how these social media companies avoid any kind of liability for anything that's published on their platform, because they're not publishers, right? It's supposed to be user content. Now that he's admitting that they are making decisions to censor information based on a federal government request or this and that, it seems to me that when they said we're going to even, we're censor COVID satire. We're not going to allow that on the platform of public users. That is becoming more like a publisher, and I think Section 230 liability now is going to be invalidated. It should be, in other words.
Caroline, what should be done about this in Washington? Everyone's on vacation right now, we should be clear. But when they come back to work, what do you think should happen from an investigative standpoint?
Oh, there absolutely needs to be more scrutiny on Meta. I mean, thankfully, X has been taken over by Elon Musk, and to his credit, he took private accountability for the suppression of COVID, satire, jokes. I mean, come on, you can't even make jokes about the pandemic, as well as the Hunter Biden story. But he actually fired a Twitter lawyer because he was involved in suppressing that story. So I think, there needs to be a bit of cleaning house going on at Meta if Mark Zuckerberg is being authentic and honest about this, not political conversion, but this realization that this was actually disastrous for public transparency, that they curtailed the spread of these stories. So you need to start, I think, within the companies, first of all, internal reform, but then there needs to be an investigation from both sides of the aisle who both agree that free speech in the public sphere, and to your point, Rebecca, I mean, these are private companies, but you have to draw the line at some point. If they're meddling in our elections, are they in fact just private actors that deserve no oversight at all?
Which they don't want, to be clear. This is why I think that you're seeing this is my thinking here. This is why Zuckerberg is being more and more forthcoming now, because they don't want to be content publishers, because then you're under regulations and rules. And all of this goes back to the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And that debate about free speech.
But to your point, Cheryl, you're the one that said it. It's Jim Jordan's work as the lead Republican on this. It's his work. It's not because Zuckerberg all of a sudden came out and said, let me be transparent in this election season about what we got wrong last time around. This is an investigation bringing this out, and they're not going to go quietly into that good night.
Well, when they come back again, we'll see what the plan's going to be here. But this admission, is over a year in the making. Those documents were first subpoenaed. Jordan requested these it was February of 2023.
Yeah.
Right. And some of the revelations about the Hunter Biden story and how that was heavily censored didn't really become apparent until the Twitter files, which Elon Musk, he dispatched these independent journalists to do this collective effort to bring light to the public about how these companies were operating behind closed doors to keep information from the people. So, I mean, we're really dependent in our republic on these benevolent big tech overlords like Elon Musk. Without people like him, there's no pressure to do this.
Yeah. All right. We're going to have a lot more on this, of course, throughout the day on Fox Business, but we're just getting started for this.
Pick up there on what that parent was saying. This concern from the parents in that school district is whether their kids have their phones on them at all. They don't want in that school district phones to be banned from campus. They're more comfortable with a restriction where their phones are in their backpacks or stored in their lockers even. So students have them at some point during the day. And that reflects this hesitancy that we're seeing across the country. Parents seem to generally agree phones are a problem, but it's what to do about that problem. And there was a recent survey that showed 70% of parents were actually against outright phone bans. They wanted them to be accessible to kids at some point. And what to look out for moving forward is, now that we know that LA and New York City have both kind of said we're going to adopt some type of phone restriction or phone ban, those are the nation's largest school districts, first and second. What they do, how they implement the rollout in the coming months, expected by January, is really important, because that's going to set the tone. Are they going to outright ban phones from schools for thousands, literally thousands of students, or are they going to strike some middle ground like Middletown is going to? We're tackling that conversation coming up in a special report that we have airing on Friday, and I'm interviewing the LA County board member, one of the board members who actually voted against adopting a phone ban in LA. What he says is fascinating and eye-opening.
What about the unions? The teachers' union is a very powerful group, and I'm wondering where the teachers sit on this debate, because I think it's pretty clear where the parents sit.
And that's actually an interesting point, because some folks point to the teachers and the imposition that it puts on them to enforce these rules as a reason to say we need to ban the phones altogether. If the ban if the phones are banned from the classroom, that it's not up to the teacher. The teacher just says, listen, this is a district-wide rule. I have no discretion in this. You got to leave the phone at home. But some people are skeptical at that and say, hey, listen, we've caught bad teacher behavior using these phones. Maybe there's an ulterior motive why they don't want the phones in the class.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. What do you say? Rebecca, you're a parent. What do you say?
Yes. Well,
I don't have kids. I'm out of this one. So
I would just tell the school districts, be careful, because a lot of schools now require laptops, right? And my kid's school requires Apple, specifically laptops. So if you're on your MacBook Pro, you have your whole Apple ID, everything. You can still instant message. You can still text. You can still do everything on the laptop. So it's way beyond. It's a matter of distraction than just putting it in the locker for the day in case of emergency doesn't take away the connectivity and the distraction. So it has to really, really, really get down to how this is going to work.
And that's a great point, because one of the conversations that I had with the LA County School Board member said, listen, even if we ban the phones or restrict them from the classroom, that doesn't change the behavior that happens outside of the classroom. They're still going to engage. They're still going to have social media. So are we really getting to the root problem of what we're concerned about by saying, hey, schools, this is now your problem. You have to fix it.
It's a great debate. Lydia Hu, thank you very much. Very interesting. All right. You can catch Lydia's Education in America special airing on Fox Business Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time.